Greetings, Starfighters. Not much to say about today's movie, Gangs Inc., except that it's from 1941, and I haven't watched it yet because this is the video portion of the episode, the part that's done before I watch the movie. But, if you've been watching this show since it started 4 years ago, oof, seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? Well, the point is, it's older, and it looks like it's longer than the other two movies, so, that should be interesting. But we are 3/4 of the way through the season now. It feels like it's going by faster than it actually is, but that's because we live in an era where time has ceased to have any meaning. Anywho, before we jump to the I have now seen the movie portion of the episode, there will be a link in the show notes to the Redbubble store where I got this tank top, which is currently the only tank top I own, and for pretty painfully obvious reasons here. Once I've lost about 100 pounds, I think this is going to look really good on me, but, Yeah, why did I buy a tank top? I'm not good looking enough to pull off a tank top. I'm just not. Gangs Inc. Okay, so I have now watched Gangs Inc., a film with the alternate title of Paper Bullets. Plot summary, courtesy of the DVD case. Hanging around with gangsters isn't something that you'd imagine beautiful Rita Adams would do, nor would you suspect that she's been to jail. But she has, and now she wants revenge on the man who put her there, Harold DeWitt. Harold and his politician father, Clarence DeWitt, are running a secret operation in conjunction with the mob. Rita's plan is to wheedle her way into the operation, get the goods on DeWitt and his partner, notorious mobster Mickey Roma, and then drop the dime on them. But Rita's not the only one after Roma. Government agent Bob Elliott is working undercover as a gangster. He knows that Rita is the key to his investigation, but how can he draw her over to his hot side? Yeah, that didn't actually happen in the movie. Bob wasn't a government agent at all. Actually, he was an engineer. Wow, this thing is way off, and it's actually even more off than you know, but I'm going to get to that. Because, for those who are new here, this show is only mostly scripted, but there is a lot of ad-libbing. Anywho, I love how the title sequence for this movie includes a general election ballot on screen. It's fitting that I'm watching a mob movie so close to this election, especially when people rather unfairly compare the sitting president of my country, as of this recording, of being like a mobster. I say unfairly because, broadly speaking, mobsters are generally competent. I mean, not that much, obviously, or we wouldn't know they existed in the first place, but still. After the titles, we meet a man on a park bench talking to his daughter about how he's hoping to have a job soon so she can have a birthday party, and she mentions that one of her neighbors referred to the man, who doesn't have a name yet, and it actually turns out he doesn't get one unless it's in one of the bits that got dropped. There are some missing frames in this. I'll get to that. Refers to him as a stool pigeon. Snitch, for those not up on their mafia lingo. Granted, all of my mafia lingo comes from The Godfather and old Law & Order episodes, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Anyway, the guy ends up getting shot in a drive-by, so safe to say he's not the main character. Especially since the very next shot after he falls is a fade-in on an orphanage. Here we learn the girl's name is Rita. So we are seeing our main character as a child. Not that you'd know she's the main character going off the posters for this movie. And based on the amount of dropped frames we've had already 3 minutes in, looks like we got an even worse transfer than the one on Boss of Baketown. At least in terms of, skipped scenes. The sound is actually better. But yeah, I know that's not uncommon with these older movies, especially ones that the studios didn't particularly care for. The ones that weren't huge hits or anything. But, I managed to enjoy Boss of Baketown regardless, so we'll see where this goes. We fade pretty quickly to Rita as an adult, signified by a birthmark that the camera is focused on in the fade. Props for excellent use of show don't tell. We also meet Rita's roommate, who sleeps in the same room, albeit in a separate bed. Hays Code or not, I wouldn't be surprised if this movie has never been talked about on r/Sappho and her friend. We follow Rita to her job, where she gets let go after being denied insurance on the grounds that she's the daughter of an ex-con. Something I'm sure insurance companies would do today if they thought they could get away with it. Boy, 2 movies in a row that give me an excuse to remind everyone how much capitalism sucks. Didn't expect that. She gets a call from her boyfriend, a drunk guy named Harold. The one from the DVD summary, I'm assuming? Okay, he's probably actually her boyfriend. Not every filmmaker in the 1940s was that dedicated to getting around the Hays Code. Not every character is queer-coded, blah, 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 blah. Well, he's not an angry drunk, at least, so there's that. Well, I say so there's that when I already know full well that he's the one responsible for getting Rita in jail. Rita's roommate at this point drops a couple of names that are also from the back of the DVD, and wouldn't you know it, the 2 boys from the orphanage sequence that I didn't remember to mention grow up to be the mobster and government agents, engineer, from the plot summary. Did I say agents instead of agent? Screw it. It was such a pain in the ass to get Audacity to work today. I just don't feel like doing that many retakes. After the 2 men, Mickey and Bob, have officially entered the picture, Rita gets in the car with Harold, who is driving drunk. Not hard to see where this is going. Harold literally hits a guy and is stupid chill about it, even going, "Relax, baby," when Rita chews him out for not going back to see if the guy they hit is okay. What a shock, the white son of a politician with mob ties isn't worried about having killed a guy while driving drunk. We cut to Harold at his lawyer's office, where the 2 plan to get Rita to falsely admit to driving the car that killed the pedestrian, yeah, it turns out the guy's dead, in exchange for something, as both men are convinced she's hoping to marry Harold for his money. This kind of sexism is not uncommon in 1940s movies, though it's less common for the film to paint such behavior as villainous, as it does here with Harold and the sleazy lawyer. Once again, I must give this movie props. A lot of times you'll have the heroes talking about women this way. Rita, unfortunately, agrees to it, but it's pretty obvious that Harold is manipulating her. Much as you'd like her to just knee Harold in the groin and move on, the movie would be over, as this is only at around 16 minutes into a 72-minute movie. Things go as the back of the DVD said, and Rita ends up in jail, and Harold, of course, doesn't keep up his end of things. It was going to be marriage in this case. Mickey seems to be on Rita's side, though, despite what the DVD plot summary said. In fact, both he and Bob, along with Donna, the roommate, are there when Rita gets out. This scene has an issue. Given how Bob and Mickey are talking in the car, you'd think this conversation was happening the same day that we saw Mickey visiting Rita in jail, but it turns out that this is happening the day she's being released. Earlier, the judge's sentence for her was 1 to 5 years. We don't get any visual clue that anywhere near that much time has passed. I mean, granted, it could have been even earlier than 1 year with, like, good behavior or whatever, but again, the movie fails to make that clear. You'd think she was in there for a day, the way this part of the film is shot. Not great. Mickey further drifts from where the DVD says he is, as he literally breaks into Harold's lawyer's office to find proof that Rita got snowed, which he brings to Rita in Donna's apartment, the same one from earlier in the movie. Man, how did Donna pay the rent that whole time? Anyway, once Rita learns just how much her boyfriend and his father and their lawyers screwed her, there's a montage covering the early part of the revenge plan that I'm actually not going to spoil for you. See, I'm actually really liking this movie so far. And while searching for the poster images, I learned that not only is it on YouTube, it might still be on Mubi, which is a streaming service that YouTuber Sarah Zed has talked about several times on her channel. Mubi is not a sponsor of this episode, but if it's as good a service as I've heard, that'd be a shame. By the way, that's M-U-B-I. Anyway, we get to the first of the movie's 2 songs. It's not a musical, I haven't had any of those on this show yet, but it did have 2 original songs written for it. Both of them end up being sung by Donna. I can't tell if it's any good, though, because the issue earlier with the dropped frames has continued, and words from the song just kind of go missing. It's a little distracting. It hasn't made the movie, like, hard to follow with regards to the plot or anything, or at least not yet, but it is noticeable. If the movie is on Mubi by the time you are watching this episode and you go check it out there, hopefully the quality of their transfer is better than this one. And suddenly we have some new characters here, and I'm confused. We have an undercover cop who isn't Bob, impersonating a mob heavy whose name isn't mentioned in the plot summary at all. But now that I got a good look at him, he's the guy who seems to be front and center on a lot of the posters I found for this movie. Wait, are we switching protagonists here? I hope not. That's a rude thing to do almost a half hour in. To make matters even more confusing, we end up spending a considerable amount of screen time with the heavy the undercover is impersonating, and I'm just wondering why. And I'm wondering why I didn't go back into the script to point out that it was actually the undercover, not the heavy. Ugh. You'd think I'd be better at this by now. I've only been doing this for like 3 years. The movie feels like it's gotten stuck in traffic. It's a good 12 minutes, I think, before any of the characters that we already knew come back into the story. And then it's just Mickey, who I think is working with the undercover, who is still posing as the heavy being named Billy Dugan. Not sure why it took me so long to get his name in there. Oh, and the cop is named Kelly. I mentioned that later in the script. I hope I remember to not say that part when I get to it. And the confusion keeps piling on. In the movie, I imagine the way I'm talking about the movie right now is probably confusing some of you, as it looks like Harold's father is trying to bring down the mob? Wait a minute. Some lines of dialogue have me thinking this is actually a bluff, though, and he's just trying to get a larger cut or something. I don't know. We've hardly seen Rita at all in the last 15 minutes. Looks like I might have spoken too soon about this being a good movie. Hope it gets back on the rails soon. Oh, hey, and it does. Shortly after a witness is murdered. Okay, that's better. Better that the story is shifting back to the main character, not that a guy testifying against the mob is dead. So, while not explicit yet, it does look like Mickey arranged for the hit in question, and is now asking Rita for the letters he gave her earlier in the movie, the ones that show that Harold's father was responsible for her going to jail. Rita's revenge plot is in full swing now, though it looks like fate took care of one of her wrongdoers for her, as when she confronts Harold's father, we learn Harold himself died 2 weeks before the scene took place in a car accident. Given his drinking, I'm thinking this is a bit like Trump getting COVID. Less karma, more cause and effect. We haven't seen Bob in a while by this point. I wonder if he's going to show up again anytime soon. It's possible that the DVD plot summary just got him confused with someone else, like the undercover cop Kelly, maybe. In the meanwhile, though, Kelly, still impersonating Dugan, is revealed to be in a relationship with Donna, which... that got uncomfortable really quick. Not like Revenge of the Nerds level of uncomfortable, but, yeah, there's been a number of stories in recent years about undercover cops infiltrating, like, activist groups and actually getting, in the case of cis male officers, getting cis female members of the activist group pregnant, and, that is, yeah, under an assumed name, false pretenses, that's just, wow, that's just bad. I know that the term rape by deception didn't exist in 1941, or at least I don't think it did, but, well, just to add a little bit of morbid humor to the end of this, there was one story where actually the undercover cop was a woman, and she ended up falling in love with a guy in the activist group she was spying on, and I think this happened in Great Britain. There was like a thing where she stood outside of his house, like begging him to take her back, even though, and of course he didn't, because he was pretty understandably upset that he was being spied on, and she honestly thought he would take her back. It's just, it's as funny as it is sad. Okay, I really need to move on for both the sake of my sanity and for the episode length. Bob does come back in eventually, and we get our second person of color in this set. A maid, unfortunately, but not acting super stereotypical, so I'll call that a win. Although I don't think she gets a name, but neither did the guy from Boss of Big Town. These movies are so white. This is vegan mayonnaise on homemade sourdough, white people. Anyway, Bob is there to talk to Rita. Turns out this is Rita's maid, because she's been making money as part of her revenge scheme. And the movie once again realigns with the plot summary on the DVD case. Things also heat up as Mickey learns that the real Dugan, the one being impersonated by Kelly, the one dating Donna, which I've already made clear is kind of yikes, is serving time in New York. There's a car chase scene here that might be more tense if it wasn't obvious they were just speeding up the footage rather than actually having the cars drive fast. But I guess they didn't have the budget for a proper car chase. Also, these parts are really dark, so I'm also wondering if maybe they didn't have permits to be filming on these roads and didn't want to risk getting attention with, like, set lights or anything. There were similar issues in the filming of Last Man on Earth, if you remember that episode from back in Season 3. Anyway, a side effect of the car chase being so dark was that I had no idea that Kelly was in one of the cars involved until it went over a cliff, and we fade to Rita comforting Donna. Though we learned very quickly that Kelly did not die in the crash, and the cops convinced the media to print a false report in the newspapers to throw off the mafia. Clever, if a bit ethically dubious. But they aren't doing it to, like, protect a crooked cop or something, so I guess it's okay. We get the second song of the movie as we enter the final 10 minutes, and Bob and Rita get married right before she gets arrested. The trial takes up the rest of the film, with Kelly showing up in court in a way that would 100% lead to a mistrial in real life. Mickey gets arrested, and, alas, Rita gets convicted. So, yeah, her revenge plot didn't exactly pan out. Though the people she was after got taken down too, so I guess it's not a total wash. And honestly, I get the feeling that the Hays Code here had something to do with her not going free. She didn't kill or even necessarily assault anyone. I mean, okay, no, she did point a gun at somebody. That does count as assault, even if she didn't intend to fire it. But she did some other illegal deeds along the way, and the Hays Code era was not big on gray morality in its protagonist, especially not female protagonists. I mean, I guess unless there was like a big studio to back it up, and this was not a big studio movie. Still, as much of a downer as it was, it's not the worst way this movie could have ended. Random thoughts I had while watching the movie. The fashion and vehicles are the same in the sections where Rita is a child and an adult. But that can probably be chalked up to budget as much as anything else. By total coincidence, my favorite movie, 1998's Living Out Loud, also uses a birthmark in place of audio to show the difference between the younger and older versions of the main character. Though unfortunately, according to the director's commentary on the DVD for Living Out Loud, a lot of audiences didn't pick up on that. I thought it was kind of obvious, but... The letters that Rita had that showed she'd been screwed over for Harold's drunk driving ended up playing less of a role in the film than I thought they would. That's a bit of a ding against the movie the more I think about it. Final verdict? This is 3/4 of a good movie. But the second quarter takes too long to really tie into the main plot, enough so that I very nearly wrote it off as a plot cul-de-sac. If you haven't heard that term before, though I think I might have used it in a prior video, can't remember, it's one of those things where you could cut everything out of a movie between two scenes and lose nothing. An example of this would be in Star Wars Episode 9. As the channel Nando v Movies pointed out, you can remove everything from when the main trio first get the Sith dagger to the scene where the Millennium Falcon is in hyperspace headed towards the site of the crashed Death Star, and lose nothing. Well, pretty much nothing. That 20 minutes between those scenes offers little in the way of character development, or any vital information that they didn't already have, or couldn't have gotten elsewhere in the film without having to derail the momentum for nothing more than a fake-out death for Chewbacca. I could go on, but then a third of this movie about a 1941 mob movie would be about how much Rise of Skywalker sucked, so I'll just drop a link to the Nando video in the show notes and move on. Gangs Inc., aka Paper Bullets, doesn't suck. It's not great either, but I think if you know going in that the second quarter of the film is a bit of a drag, you can enjoy it as much, if not more than I did. So we've only got one more movie this season. Lady Gangster. Let's see how that turns out. It occurs to me that I've liked each movie in this set more than the one before it. So if that holds, boy, this is going to be the easiest season wrap-up ranking ever. Have fun. Stay safe.